Hey, it's Brando, and we are back again talking about the top Zelda mini-bosses on the N64. This is part 2, showing off the remaining 12 enemies as we scale our way to the number 1 spot. As a quick recap, we are reviewing every mini-boss in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and ranking them based on 4 categories: design, arena, combat, and lore. Of course, the definition of a mini-boss can be subjective, so if I missed any, apologies. But there can only be one winner, so let's get to it. In 12th place, we have the Gerudo Thief. Or is it Pirate? These two all-female mini-bosses are very similar, but there are plenty of differences. So we'll combine them to start off with this ranking list. To start off, believe it or not, their design does differ. While they both don clothing that mimics traditional Arabian dancewear, the Gerudo Thief actually wears a mask to cover their mouths from the desert sand. Pretty cool touch. I love their curved swords and spinning acrobatic attacks. Overall, a great look. Where it lacks a bit is the arena. The rooms are just normal shaped jail cells or closed off boxy rooms with nothing to talk about, which isn't bad in this fight as you'll need to focus. The combat here is where it shines. Quick movements, fast slashes, and a stellar circular jump really make this mini-boss shine. Interesting to note, the spinning jump attack automatically puts Link in jail in the Ocarina of Time version. However, when the pirates do it, that doesn't happen. Instead, it takes until you have one heart left for them to eventually kick you out. Interesting difference, which makes the Ocarina of Time version slightly harder. Finishing off with lore is solid. Each game has its own fantastic backstory. The thieves are the cultural center of where Ganondorf hails from, and so learning about him as you free the carpenters is pretty fantastic. In Termina, the pirates are merely protecting their treasures, some of which have been tricked into stealing by the wicked Skull Kid. Here, I prefer the thief version. Overall, I love this mini-boss, and placing it so low just shows how hard this list is going to be to rank. Oh boy. In 11th, we have the Poe sister Meg. Now, as you may know, the Poe sisters reside in both Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, but today we're focusing on their debut in the Forest Temple. You may also be wondering, what about the other 3 sisters? Well, Meg is kind of the head honcho, and the final battle you will encounter on your way to defeating them, so she earns her own spot on this list, for better or worse, as you'll see. Her design is great. I love the way she moves and hovers with her glowing purple torch. Not to mention, she dons a powerful tiara atop her head, showing that she means business. The arena you face her in is fantastic. As soon as you walk into the Forest Temple Center, you see these 4 torches light. However, you soon discover that the colorful fire isn't just some clever magic, but the fire of 4 Poe sisters that block your progress to the boss. Meg stands as the final hurdle, and you battle her atop the elevator which leads below. Defeating her allows the lift to appear, which is an amazing experience that doesn't disappoint. What does disappoint is the combat. It's basically a video game version of 3-card Monte, except it's 4 ghosts. Meg circles you, and you have to discern which is the real one and shoot it. You can tell which one it is easy enough by finding out which one spins first, so it's a pretty basic puzzle. The lore is good. I love the idea of these ghosts hiding the way to the boss, which is also a phantom. By defeating them, you light these torches which stay lit with their souls. Excellent, but not good enough to get into the top 10. And starting this top 10, we have the ever-popular Flare Dancer. What a guy. This magical flame loves dancing and zooming around the fire temple and does so with style. The design of this mini-boss is amongst the very best. As you fight him, the colors gradually shift from yellow to blue to green, getting hotter and hotter. Incredible to look at, especially as it slides through the room on fire skates. Speaking of, the arena is good. It spawns out of a fiery elevated center, which you must run around as you try to pull the demonic core from its chest. As the Flare Dancer dances, the hookshot is needed to rip its core out to engage in combat. Though, interestingly enough, the hammer can also shake the room so violently that it falls out as well. The combat is fiery hot. Though, Flare Dancer doesn't get more difficult as the color changes, it essentially acts as a health bar. After chasing the core around and dealing enough damage, it explodes, leaving behind a prize. The one thing lacking here, though, is lore. There isn't much stated as to why the Flare Dancer exists, why there are 2 here, and what they have to do with the fire dragon Volvagia. Regardless, this top 10 starts strong with Flare Dancer. Moving along, next up is The Poe sisters? 2 spots ago, we covered Meg, and these sisters are much the same, but their appearances, combat, and puzzles are unique enough to grant them their own spot. The remaining sisters are named Amy, Beth, and Joel. If that sounds familiar, you'd be correct. These are the names of the ladies in the film and novel Little Women. Their designs are solid, maybe not as great as Meg, but are a load better than the regular Poe and Big Poe you see roaming Hyrule. What makes these enemies shine is their arenas, and for this I include the puzzle that unlocks them. The red and blue ghosts require Link to sneakily shoot their portraits in order to drag their ghosts into the real world where we can fight them. It's super cool. Getting too close makes them disappear, leaving an eerie blank portrait behind. The green ghost puzzle is something else entirely, involving pushing blocks together to create this portrait. These puzzles serve as excellent gateways to the fight, which are more or less basic Poe battles. Nothing extreme, but fun nonetheless, as you learn that targeting them makes them disappear. A very real lesson for this temple. In the end, these 3 differentiate themselves just enough to edge them above Meg. Moving on. Next, we have a fan favorite, Stalfos. What an incredible enemy. These foes have been featured in almost every single Zelda game since the original, but in Ocarina of Time, they are a very real threat as they come wielding armor, a shield, and an epic sword. Their design is truly one of the best in the game. However, you may question if it fits the mini-boss mold, so let me explain. True, in some enemies you can encounter Stalfos as a regular enemy, but a special set of them guards a chest in Forest Temple that earns them this spot. Their curved red sword looks amazing paired with their evil undead eyes and raised shield. Their hulking appearance over Link makes them truly intimidating, and honestly, they haven't looked this cool since. The arena in particular we are examining is the circular room with the bow. When you first walk in, you would see a hole in the ground where you can see an earlier room where you already fought 2 of these. That's a tough wake-up call for Link. As you fight off one, the ceiling collapses, revealing yet another 2, but these are different. The combat against Stalfos is intense. They will normally have their shield up, blocking all damage, requiring you to get clever and sidestep the defenses or use a myriad of techniques to try to lower its guard. The fact that a Stalfos can do a jumping attack for 2 whole damage makes it a very tough enemy. Now, what marks this fight as special as a mini-boss is that when you destroy one Stalfos, its bones linger on the ground. They don't disappear. As you fight the remaining one, if you take too long, the Stalfos reanimates itself and jumps right back up, fierce as ever with full HP. In order to win this fight, you have to destroy both of them within seconds of each other. The lore around these guys are pretty spectacular as well, as we learn from a Kokiri child that Stalfos are formed from the adults who've become lost in the Lost Woods. So, knowing you're battling an ancient cursed soldier makes this all the cooler. In the 7th spot, we have the Iron Knuckle. Jeez, this list is getting tougher and tougher to rank. And the Iron Knuckle is perhaps one of the toughest enemies in the game. This foe dons a giant suit of armor that hinders its movement, but don't be fooled because the giant axe can be swung with incredible power and speed, dealing up to 4 hearts of damage, which, come to think of it, that might be the strongest attack in the game. Not to mention, these guys have a ton of health, as much or more than most bosses in the game. When you deal enough damage to this guy, the outer layer of armor drops off and reveals a lighter set underneath where it can move much faster, and it will likely catch you off guard. Amazing. There are several places you might encounter this mini-boss, but for this ranking, the best spot is going to be the dual counter atop Ganon's castle, though shoutouts to the Spirit Temple fight as well. The fight here shows a black and white version that look absolutely menacing, and if you're not careful, you could be slain in an instant. The combat is superb, some of the best really. The Iron Knuckle can guard, but will otherwise be constantly chasing you down as they seek to deal massive damage with their axes. This is a fight of evasion, as your shield is useless here as you'll quickly find out. When they become faster and more nimble, the combat is even more intense as you run to find a safe spot from the chaos. Interesting to note, the fire arrows work very well on them once their heavy armor is discarded. The only downside here is the lore. While the Spirit Temple has a cool scene where the twin witches transform Naburu into a knuckle, the rest of them are rather nondescript. Perhaps they too were other powerful souls that were trapped, but we may never know. Moving along. Chugging along, we visit Termina for our next entry, which just misses out in the top 5, the Garo Master. This mini-boss can be found in the Stone Tower Temple, guarding the powerful light arrows. His appearance as a shrouded ninja is great. I love his mask and the fiery swords as he jumps around the room. The one thing this mini-boss lacks is a good arena though. He fights you in this giant square room. Nothing particularly interesting here, aside from the fact that the boss is technically right above you when you flip the temple. The combat here is where the fight truly shines. The Garo Master has 2 flaming sabers that dance around the room quickly, and you have to use all your wits as oftentimes he disappears only to attack you from above. Avoiding his blows blows and setting up a counterattack is the only way you'll dispatch this epic foe. The lore here is also great. The Garo Master is the leader of a group of secretive Garo robes who have been gathering intelligence on the region of Ikana. Long ago, there was a war that led to a terrible curse, and these Garos were the initial spies that started a conflict. A very cool idea and design, but just missing out on the top 5. For this is the way of the ranking list. Alright, if you've made it this far, please consider subscribing and becoming a member to the channel, else you might end up an undead for the Ikana army, which is exactly where we're going, as number 5 is the incredible Gomez. This is the other mini-boss which resides in the Stone Tower Temple, but in its upside-down, inverted state. This boss screams Grim Reaper, as he surrounds himself with dark bats and an epic scythe. Truly one of the coolest mini-bosses in the game. The arena is the major thing that's lacking, as it's just a giant square room. Nothing special here. The combat, however, is remarkable. Being guarded by the dark bats, you are required to use light arrows to clear a path to the orb in the center, which you can attack. The spinning scythe, the constant bats, the fierce quick combat makes this one of the most exciting fights in the series. And the lore here is fascinating, as there isn't much directly stated about this boss. There are clues to help determine why the curse exists and how this kingdom fell into this endless undead war, but that will take another video entirely to discuss. For now, we're just happy at the 5th spot. In 4th, we have the epic Captain Kida rising to the occasion. Literally. This mini-boss may appear just to be a giant skeleton because, well, it is. Incredible. You can find him laying under a bridge, which leads to the captain's hat. This hat is required to control the undead. When you play the Sonata of Awakening, you wake up his old pile of bones that start an epic race against the clock where you need to chase him down, while hordes of the undead block your progress. If you make it to him, you get an excellent fight that sees him swiping down and launching aerial butt bomb attacks, so be careful. The arena is superb, as it plays nicely into his fight to get the mask back before you do. Gates of fire appear as you chase down the undead commander. Once you get to the end and make it to your prize, you get one last encounter with Captain Kida. For defeating him, he asks you for his leave. After leading his troops in life and in death, he wishes to be dismissed by his better. And so, we salute you, soldier. You've earned your rest and this spot on this list. Alright, no more games. We are in the top 3. These are the best of the best mini-bosses in the console. So good, they could have been bosses themselves. But in 3rd, we're sticking with Ikana, with Egos to Ikana and his lackeys. The design of these two undead warriors and their king is something truly special. They look like stylized Stalfos, which they essentially are. The king, though, is on another level of cool. His giant mouth, cool jewels, and insane sword make him one of the baddest undead enemies in the series, which is matched by the arena. What a cool spot to fight, as you have to burn the shades covering the window, which allows light in. Light, of course, being the thing to deal the finishing blows on these undead. The fight itself is pretty good too. After besting his 2 soldiers, Egos himself comes to the fight with some wild moves, including a breath attack and a move where he's seen dislodging his own head that chases you around the room while his body fights you. Stellar. This is also one of the bosses whose lore ties in so well. While there is a lot of mystery about what's going on in Ikana and how this all happened, the lore we get here paints a grim war after centuries of curse that have tethered them to a dying land. For these reasons, it places number 3 in our list. What more needs to be said? Number 2, and this one gives me the creeps. Dead Hand. In all of Zelda, is there a more feared and creepy foe as this? Dead Hand appears in the Shadow Temple, but I feel like the most iconic encounter with him is in the bottom of the well, where he appears as the final mini-boss guarding the Lens of Truth. Here, Link is a child, so his weapons are weaker and his reach struggles to make contact with the Dead Hand head, which towers above you. His design is iconic, and though he has never been featured again in Zelda, probably because he is terrifying, the haunting image of this mini-boss remains for all time. His craned up head looks unnatural, as his deformed blob of a body slowly inches towards you. The room is filled with these undead infinity hands which reach out like zombies, waiting for Link to come near. If they get you, they're gonna hold you down as Dead Hand closes by. The arena is spookily great. A close look will show the room is just a pile of bodies and skulls. Brutal, but fitting. This enemy exists in the cursed Kakariko village, which was a safe haven designed by the Sheikah, and this creature is one of the undead servants of evil that lives by this realm, oozing rot and decay. The combat here is as good as it is terrifying. The dead hand won't appear from the ground unless you're grabbed by one of the infinity hands in the room. As it holds you down, the dead hand emerges and slowly comes near you, bellowing out its sickening laugh. If you manage to break free, you get only a brief moment of respite as you get your only shot to attack it as it lowers its head to feast on your face. A riveting encounter, but not enough to earn the #1 spot. And here we are, #1. Have you guessed what it is? It's of course, Dark Link. What an excellent foe. Debuting back in Zelda 2, this dark version of Link is a truly terrifying doppelganger. Its design is superb as it appears to be a dark version of Link, with glowing red eyes and a deep growling voice. Though not often shown off in Zelda, Dark Link remains a popular fan favorite, shrouded in intrigue and mystery. This mini-boss appears in the Water Temple, where we have one of the most iconic fights in gaming. The room is silent when you enter, just a low puddle on the ground as you walk across what appears to be an endless room. Did we just walk outside into another world? As we pass through, we find a door locked on the other side. As we turn around, we see a lone tree in the middle, our center. And what do we find there other than ourself? This Dark Link is his antithesis, and as such, is the perfect match for Link. The arena reflects both of you as you dance with your shadow, trading blow for blow perfectly. In fact, this Link may be better than us. Whenever we try a thrusting blow, Dark Link hops atop our blade, sometimes mockingly, and punishes us with a strike of his own. You quickly learn that this fight won't be easy, and in fact, maybe one of the most difficult fights in the game. If we manage to come out on top and defeat our doppelganger, then the magic of the room is dispelled, and we find that it wasn't what we thought. Perhaps it was a reflection of the Lonely Isle and all of us, the place where our fears and darkness reside. If Link manages to best himself, he gets access to the ultimate long shot, a very worthy reward. The only thing that perplexes me is, why is he here, of all places? Why the Water Temple? I suppose no mini-boss is perfect, but this one is pretty close. And for this reason, it places #1 on this list. But let me know, did I miss any mini-bosses? Who was your favorite mini-boss? And did I totally mess up the ranking? I would love to discuss it here in the comments, or better yet, in my Discord, where we're always yammering about Zelda goodness. Huge shoutouts to my YouTube members, Patreon supporters, and just everyone here. It means a lot. I'm Brando, and I'll catch you guys next time.